China is in panic mode right now, and I'm going to show you the updates that you need to know. This is going to affect the real estate market. It's going to impact you in your daily life, even if you're not inside China. I'm going to show you why that is the case. Welcome, truth seekers. You come to the right place because I can show you the data that others simply cannot. So join this grassroots movement of nearly 300,000 people. Click that subscribe and the notification beside it so that we can conquer this together. You got to understand what's happening in China because that's usually a bellwether of what happens in the near future inside of Europe, inside of the US, Canada, the UK, and so on. So let's look at this right now. China is doing something that is very different from many other countries. Number one, China cuts the borrowing rates again in bid to juice recovery. Economists say that more drastic measures may be needed with debt and uncertainty continuing to weigh on consumers' willingness to spend. So you could see that what they are doing here is they are stimulating on every single level. They're not going real hand over fist into it. It's not some mega bailouts that are taking place, but they are in fact doing this bit by bit by bit. They're trying to stimulate, and they've been doing it for a while, but certainly right now we can see that they've really accelerated this process. Here we have it. Markets are growing impatient over the lack of follow-through on China's stimulus. A timeline to look forward to the semi-annual economic conference in the end of July for any major fiscal announcement. In the meantime, the silence is deafening. And of course, this is a problem. They locked down for 3 years. They had some serious challenges. Everything with Taiwan and the US doesn't really go well. And at the same time, with Russia and Ukraine, China's kind of pulled into that and they're kind of distracted a little bit by it. So this is overall a concern. They're trying to do the whole Belt Road Initiative. They're trying to make that happen. Got problems on the debt side as well. So they are facing sort of this back and forth. There's backlash as well. What I can see here is that they are trying to stimulate when everybody else around the world is trying to tighten. So you know something's going on even when they can't get that growth. But I think part of the problem is that when you look at, Europe, for instance, they just do not have the economy they did before. Inflation is really high, and certainly a lot of the consumers are spending more on energy and food than they are on luxury goods, for instance, or maybe not even luxury goods. Maybe it's just regular generic products that are being produced inside of China, like basically everything. And if you want to know, by the way, if maybe you're in the US, you want to know what factory your goods are coming from, somewhere in China, you can literally find out. Is a website called Import Yeti, YETI. Import Yeti will tell you for free. So you could type in, let's say, Nike, and you could find the exact factory inside of China where that is produced. And maybe they make some other stuff too. It's pretty interesting just to give you a little bit more insight. Now, people like myself will spend hours looking into this, looking into the location, seeing the proximity of that factory to the port, and I do all these things, and that would be just an interesting video to make. To me, that's interesting, but that's kind of where I get all this information. It's not necessarily just articles and charts. It's that other little bit of depth in there. I want to show you some more though. Look here. Among the policies being considered by Beijing, the Wall Street Journal reported the issuance of a special treasury bond that's worth roughly 1 trillion yuan. That's about $140 billion, I should say. To help fund the new infrastructure investment, as well as looser rules to encourage people to buy more than one home in the hope of sparking a turnaround in China's beaten down real estate. So what does that tell you? Like what does that tell you here? Special treasury bonds, we're going to do, trying to fund new infrastructure investment as if there isn't enough already, and then trying to get people to buy another home, a second home. Real estate is the biggest thing in China, $62 trillion asset class. And of course they're worried about it. Of course they're trying to do what they can, and they're stimulating. Let's get people buying homes. They're scared because it is basically in the process of collapse. People don't know, that say no, people do not understand what's happening. They don't. Are the buildings still there? Are the companies still existing? Yes, But if you actually were to study the financial history, you would realize how a collapse works. Okay, all the companies don't need to go bankrupt. The buildings just abandoned. Like, people have this odd look, like they think it's like bread lines in the 1930s. Like, that's not what happens. That's not how it works. But that's what happens when you don't read history. China's economic recovery since the dismantling of the lockdowns has been unimpressive, with the nation's manufacturing sector contracting and retail sales trailing estimates. The call for more stimulus is growing. State-run media running front-page articles saying that the central bank is likely to ease monetary policy further. So of course they want that. If that information is getting out there, clearly they want it to be. And that is, forward guidance. They're trying to do this and make sure that everybody stays oh so calm. I want to cover another aspect here as we look out to other countries, what they are doing. Amazon and Google to expand India investments after Modi visit. So the leader of India meets with, comes to the U.S., meets all the officials. They have this meeting. There's clearly the demand for, expanding, as I've talked about with Apple. They want to do business more in India as well as Vietnam. They don't want to do as much of their manufacturing and other things that they've been doing just there. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Okay, IT is big in India, and now manufacturing, depending on the type of products and so on. Side note, I feel like if I looked at this image and I thought it was very funny, it looks like, I didn't watch the video associated, but it really looks like this handshake went on for way too long. Like, when I just look at their faces, they're both looking at the hand, and I just can't help but notice it just feels like it went on way too long. You let me know what you think. The makeup of the delegation reflects our objective of diversifying the breadth of our export offering. This is New Zealand, by the way. The export of traditional goods like dairy, meat, and wood to China remain important, but it's critical that we also throw our support behind emerging sectors such as gaming and health and wellness. So what they're saying is, we are doing business with China, but we want to do more business in other stuff too. So it's not all just one-sided, and these countries are saying we don't want to do business with China. They're saying we'll love to do business. Look at this. Exports to China more than doubled in 8 years. Over the last couple of years, it's haven't really gone anywhere, but there has been an acceleration over these last several years. It's probably going to continue to increase. Geographically, it makes a lot of sense. They are positioned there, so you could see that. So my friends in New Zealand, watch for that. China's growth does affect you. That's why I say this. Singapore's Grab cuts 1,000 jobs to stay competitive. This is just one more company. I just wanted to show you, even in a country like Singapore, strong currency, generally a strong economy, they're not immune. They're not immune. So you've got to be aware of that, okay? Japan's inflation stays above the BOJ, the Bank of Japan target. Key gauge hits 42-year high. So of course, you've got issues inside of Japan they are never going to admit. And they said specifically, we will not stop money printing. They're not. This is Japan again. Although price pressures are broadening, inflation nevertheless remains overwhelmingly supply-driven. Ridiculous. Anyway, with an economy that is still smaller than before 2020, policy tweaks remain some way off. Essentially saying we're just going to continue this policy of printing a whole bunch of money. We do not care what happens as a result of it. We're not going to give up on that. Kudos for them for sticking to it, and that there'll be nothing left at the end. Okay, should be. So they should be calling for the end of it and just pull the darn Band-Aid off. China surpasses the US in popularity among Arab youth as Beijing expands Middle East footprint. I'm simply using, this is the one little survey that was done. But the reason I mention this specifically is because you can see that inside of China, there are clear partnerships that have formed with the Middle East. That's one that I have noted very clearly, whether that has been, the United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia and other countries. They want more and more and more. Qatar as well. Okay. That shows us what's happening 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Be aware of it. China is getting those partners that have the growth, but also resources. That's important, okay? Beijing plans a new training facility in Cuba, raising prospect of Chinese troops on America's doorstep. My understanding is that they had this for a while, actually, a few years, but they want to expand that, and that is not good because of what's happening with China, Taiwan. Cuba's kind of like that circumstance where the proximity is right there, right, very, very close to Florida, and I would say that is very bearish for Florida in that respect, okay? Hopefully we'll never have to deal with anything in this respect. I am hoping that things get resolved, and we've seen some talks that have happened. That's good, but still we're getting this. And I can understand why China wants to do that. They're saying, hey, you're going to do the Taiwan thing, we're going to do this. China hits back after Biden calls Xi a dictator. All right. So the emperor, is he a dictator? I don't know. You decide what you want to use. I always call him the emperor because, you know, when they stop elections, what do you call it? You know, does he have to wear the robe? Anyway, point is, they are still having some problems. There's no question about that. And I see the future of this being an issue, very much so. They have to get talking. They have to make deals. They have to do trade. Businesses need to work together. There's always going to be problems. Countries always have problems, but hopefully progressing in a better direction. Look, the UK, Britain kind of had a big problem with the US at one point, if you remember, you know what I mean? But now they're great partners. So it's just a matter of fact that they have to do business, they have to deal, they have to realize that the people inside the country, you know, quite frankly, they don't want war. Most people like war, right? You know, it really depends on how you ask it, but it's unfortunate. Anyway, hopefully good things come out of this. If you want to know with the declining dollar, how to safeguard your wealth, you got to understand this right here. I broke it down in this video because it's highly relevant to what we just talked about. Click it and I'll see you there.